August 1588. The English Channel. The Spanish Armada is the largest naval force ever assembled in European history to that point. 130 ships, roughly 8,000 sailors, and 19,000 soldiers moving in a tight crescent formation stretching nearly 8 miles across the water. The Duke of Medina Sidonia commands from his flagship, the San Martin. The plan is precise. Sail up the channel, rendezvous with the Duke of Parma's 17,000 troops waiting in the Spanish Netherlands, escort that invasion force across to the English coast, and end the reign of Elizabeth I. Philip II of Spain has funded this operation for years. Every ship in that formation has been provisioned, armed, and positioned according to a strategy that accounts for the English fleet, the tides, and the coastal defenses. It does not account for everything. Anchored at Plymouth, alongside the English galleons under Lord Howard and Francis Drake, sits a single vessel that does not belong to the 16th century. No sails, no cannon ports, a low steel hull carrying a single electromagnetic launch system mounted on the forward deck, a railgun. The specific system is modeled on the BAE Systems electromagnetic railgun prototype developed in the early 21st century. In testing, this weapon launched a 23-pound guided projectile at Mach 6. That's approximately 4,600 miles per hour. Muzzle energy of 32 megajoules. Effective range in naval testing exceeded 100 nautical miles. The projectile carries no explosive warhead. It does not need one. At Mach 6, kinetic energy alone is the mechanism of destruction. Impact force per shot is comparable to a conventional artillery shell, delivered at a velocity that makes interception impossible by any technology the 16th century possesses or could conceive of. The weapon, the railgun, accelerates its projectile using electromagnetic force rather than chemical propellant. Two conductive rails carry an electrical current. The projectile sits between them and completes the circuit. The resulting magnetic field accelerates the round down the barrel in milliseconds. There is no muzzle flash in the conventional sense. There's a visible plasma discharge, a crack of superheated air, and then nothing where the projectile was. Rate of fire in sustained testing reached 10 rounds per minute. The projectile itself is a 3.2 kilogram fin-stabilized kinetic penetrator. It enters a wooden ship hull and does not stop at the first plank. The physics require it to continue through whatever material it encounters until the energy dissipates. Against oak timber averaging 18 to 24 inches thick on a first-rate Spanish warship, the round passes through one side and exits the other. What it passes through along the way is the gun deck, the powder magazine, the keel framing, and any crew positioned in its path. The Armada. This needs to be said plainly. The Spanish Armada is not a disorganized fleet that panics under pressure. It's a disciplined, battle-hardened force operating under a precise tactical doctrine. The crescent formation is specifically designed to be mutually supporting. Any ship under attack draws fire from its neighbors. The flanks are held by the most heavily armed galleons. The troop transports and supply vessels travel inside the formation. Medina Sidonia has orders to hold this shape at all costs. The English fleet under Howard has 197 ships total, but the fighting corps is roughly 34 royal galleons. They are faster and lower in the water than the Spanish vessels. Drake has already spent several days engaging the formation from range, testing for weaknesses. He's found the Spanish formation nearly impossible to crack with conventional cannon fire from distances that keep English ships safe. The crescent holds. It has held through 3 days of running engagements. Medina Sidonia has trained for this command. The Spanish Navy has fought the Ottomans, the French, the Portuguese fleets. It's developed rigid protocols for damage assessment and tactical response. A ship is lost and command authority passes to the next designated captain. The formation adjusts. This is not theory. The Spanish captains have done this in an actual battle. They have maintained discipline through combat losses, but all of those previous experiences involve a visible enemy. An enemy you can see approaching, an enemy you can see firing, an enemy you can maneuver to engage or avoid. The railgun introduces a variable that no naval doctrine of 1588 has anticipated or can mentally process: the engagement. On the morning of August 6th, as the Armada passes the Devon coast near Eddystone, the railgun vessel clears the harbor entrance and takes up position approximately 12 nautical miles south of the Spanish formation. The crew locks firing solutions using optical range-finding equipment that requires no satellite, no electronic network, line of sight and ballistic calculation tables. At 12 miles, the Armada occupies a visible horizon-length target. The first round leaves the rail at 0617 hours. The plasma crack crosses the English English deck crew in under a second. The round covers 12 nautical miles in approximately 9.4 seconds. It strikes the San Salvador, a 958-ton armed merchant vessel carrying a significant portion of the Armada's gunpowder reserve. The rounds enter below the waterline on the port quarter, travels the length of the lower deck, and exits through the starboard bow. The structural damage alone is not immediately fatal to the ship, but the round has passed directly through the primary powder storage compartment. Secondary detonation follows within 40 seconds. The San Salvador does not sink gradually. It ceases to be a coherent structure. The crescent formation does not break on the first shot. This is important. The Spanish captains cannot identify the source of what just happened. The sound reaches them after the strike. There is no visible muzzle flash at 12 miles. No incoming projectile was observed. One of their ships has simply detonated. Medina Sidonia's signals go out immediately. Hold the formation. Maintain course. The discipline is real. These are professional naval officers commanding experienced crews. They do not scatter on a single incident. The second round targets the San Martin itself. It strikes the upper gun deck forward of the main mast, shears through 3 bronze cannon, passes through the internal bulkhead, and exits through the hull 4 feet above the waterline. Medina Sidonia survives. The forward gun battery does not. The San Martin can still sail. It cannot fight at close range with any effectiveness on its port side forward quarter. Damage control crews begin working immediately. The formation holds. The third and fourth rounds arrive within 90 seconds of each other. One strikes the Rada and Coronada, a flagship of the squadron commander Alonso de Leyva. It hits the main mast at its base. The mast collapses across the deck and into the adjacent rigging of the nearest escort vessel. Both ships lose steerage for several minutes. The fourth round enters the waterline of a hulk transport in the center of the formation and opens a breach no 16th century pump can close at sea speed. The ship begins to slow. The formation geometry shifts slightly to compensate. By the sixth round, something begins to change in the Spanish fleet that no tactical order can prevent. The captains still cannot identify the source. The rounds are arriving from the direction of the English coast, but the English fleet is visible 4 miles to the north and is not firing. Whatever is killing their ships is not where they're looking. The Armada's defensive doctrine assumes threats from other ships. It has no protocol for a weapon firing from a position 12 miles distant that no vessel in the formation can reach. The Crescent cannot wheel and charge a target it cannot locate. It cannot close the distance that is killing it. Rounds 7 through 12 target the outer flanking galleons systematically. The San Juan de Portugal, the Grand Grin, the Raganzna. Each round is aimed at the waterline or the powder storage positions identified from published Spanish ship records the crew carried aboard for reference. Not all shots hit critical systems precisely. Several strike upper decks, destroy rigging, kill gun crews. 2 rounds pass through hulls without secondary detonation, and the ships remain afloat and damaged. But the rate of structural loss is accelerating faster than the formation can absorb. 3 ships are sinking outright. 4 more have lost significant fighting capacity. The center of the crescent is compressing as captains unconsciously move away from the outer positions that keep getting hit. The compressed center is now a denser target. Round 13 strikes a transport carrying infantry soldiers from Parma's designated landing force. There are approximately 300 soldiers on deck preparing equipment for a landing that is no longer going to happen. The kinetic penetrator enters at the bow and travels sternward through the 2 decks. The secondary fire that follows takes 40 minutes to become uncontrollable. Nearby ships cannot approach to assist without entering the fire risk zone. The men on the burning transport have no way off the vessel that does not involve open water and no rescue ships positioned to recover them. Round 16 strikes the powder magazine of the San Marcos with direct effect. The detonation is large enough that debris lands on the deck of a galleon 200 meters away. At this point, the crescent formation has been under fire for approximately 22 minutes. It's received 16 rounds. The outer flanking ships are gone or disabled. The center is compressed and slowing. Medina Sidonia's command options are narrowing rapidly. Retreat north risks sailing into the English galleons. Retreat south means abandoning the rendezvous with Parma entirely. Holding position means continuing to absorb fire from a source the fleet cannot engage, cannot identify with precision, and cannot reach with any weapons it carries. The formation begins to fracture around the 19th and 20th rounds, not because any single captain gives an order to to break because the ships that have been maintaining the outer crescent positions are no longer there to maintain them. The geometry collapses on its own. Individual squadrons begin making independent decisions. Several galleons attempt to turn south and run downwind. The Railgun crew tracks and engages the largest, the Medina Sidonia's own San Martin among them. 2 rounds strike the San Martin in succession. The second round enters near the rudder assembly. Steering control on the flagship becomes unreliable. The ship drifts. By the time 30 rounds have left the rail, the Armada has ceased to function as a coordinated invasion force. Not every ship is sunk. The majority are still afloat in some condition, but the command structure operating through Medina Sidonia is broken. The flagship cannot maneuver reliably. Squadron commanders are operating without central coordination. The tight crescent that made the Armada's defensive doctrine work is gone. Individual ships are scattered across 8 miles of channel in no coherent pattern. The rendezvous with Parma at the Netherlands coast was scheduled for specific tidal windows. Those windows will pass before any version of this fleet reassembles into something capable of escorting a landing force across open water. Parma's 17,000 soldiers wait at Dunkirk for ships that are not coming in any organized form. The flyboats of the Dutch sea beggars maintain their blockade of the Flemish ports. Several surviving Armada galleons make for the Scottish coast and the long route home around the north of Britain. Of those, a significant number do not survive the autumn storms in the North Atlantic and the Irish Sea. Philip II receives reports of the engagement over the following weeks. The reports describe an English weapon that fired from beyond visible range, produced no smoke or flash, and struck targets with no warning. Spanish naval records from the period have no category for the mechanism described.